How are you? What's been going on? Tell me an update.
I'm good. I'm a medical student now. I'm a first-year medical student at Hackensack Meridian School of Medicine.
Congratulations. I'm so excited to hear that. So what made you want to do medicine?
I kind of always wanted to do medicine, even when I was in 5th grade. I think I decided when I was like 7 years old, when I broke both of my wrists at the same time. And I had to go to the orthopedic and have my cast. And I thought it was so cool back then. Obviously, my reasons kind of evolved a lot over the years, but that kind of is what initiated it. And then over the years, I got exposed to it a lot more by being a competitive cheerleader. And I just really fell in love with it and thought there was a need and a hole in medicine that I thought I could fill. After shadowing a lot in undergrad and going into a lot of surgeries, it really showed that it was something I want to do for the rest of my life. So
orthopedic surgery is your end goal?
That is my end goal, yes.
That is incredible. What I normally ask my former students is what you wish you would have learned while you were in school. And that could be whether you were with me or at any point along your journey as a student, and you have been a student, are going to be a student for quite some time.
Yes, I call myself a professional student.
Love that you're going to commit yourself to that. So what advice could you pay forward, not only to teachers, but to other students about what you wish they would learn while they're in school?
I think I actually have a pretty hot take for somebody who is a professional student and who loves school and who wants to do school for all these years, is that one of the things I really wish I learned or kind of understood more as a younger student was that not to let grades kind of define you and define your worth, and also not to let your friends or your group or your little clique define who you are and what you can do. Because as you know, everything is super competitive with grades. And even at that young age, I remember being in 5th grade in e-math, thinking getting a C, that was the end of my life. I was never going to be a doctor. I was never going to go to college. Everything was over. But obviously, that's not true. If you get a C in college, your life's not over. But at the time, obviously, when you're 10 years old, that's your whole world. That's what you think. Making that less of a big deal, especially at that age, is important for students to learn that it's not the end of the world. And then also going into who you hang out with. People would look at me and who maybe I was friends with or what I did, and would judge me and maybe think I wasn't smart. I got put down a lot and told like, you shouldn't be taking AP or you shouldn't be doing this, when that's also not the case. You can do whatever you want in the end.
So how did you work through that? Was it just time? Was it having family, having good friends that you had as role models? Like, what helped you? Because I agree that who you hang out with probably is the biggest indicator of your experiences, especially at these ages. So how did you kind of sort that out?
I got really lucky in my situation because, I never was one of those students who had friends in my classes. All my friends were usually from outside of school or from cheerleading or from camp. So I always felt kind of isolated in my classes, which I just got lucky because my parents were always the ones pushing me and encouraging me, being like, no, you belong here. It's okay. Like, you'll be fine. Like, I had a funny story. Now it's funny. At the time, it was a little dramatic. When I was in high school, I was taking honors chemistry my sophomore year. And I remember walking into the classroom the first day of class, and someone looks me in the face and was like, no, this is honors. You're in the wrong room. And I was like,
oh my goodness.
And I was like, no, I'm in the right room. Like, that's what I signed up for. So I've always had that experience, but it's usually always in the beginning of the year. And then once all the students in the class kind of got to know me, and you could see based on how everyone was performing, like, everyone kind of knew, like, no, she's cool. She belongs here. It's okay. So by the end of the year, it would always turn out fine.
How do you get to a place of, no, I do belong here? You might even have imposter syndrome to a degree, right? Like, do I belong here? How did you work through that?
Yeah, I still have imposter syndrome to this day. That was my answer for my med school interviews when they would ask what your weakness is. I'd be like, oh, I have such bad imposter syndrome. I just don't think I should be a doctor. I'm not good enough. But it's something that you work through every day. Every day I'm like, no, it's okay. Kind of taught myself, I just keep proving it to myself, and I would keep doing well and doing okay. And then that would keep showing myself like, okay.
Where do you think that comes from? Why do you think so many of us feel like we are not good enough?
I guess it's just the system and like being judged. I don't know if it was just an our town thing or an every town thing. A lot of things were very like clicky. Like, probably, I'm sure people felt the same way with sports. Maybe if they weren't a football player or a soccer player, they wanted to play soccer, but then all the kids on the team maybe were like, no, you can't. You're not. You haven't ever played. But then maybe they are really good. So it's just kind of. I feel like maybe it does start when you're young. Even to this day, when I go back home and I run into people from town, they're like, "Oh, what are you doing?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm in medical school." People are like, "What? You're in medical school? You're going to be a doctor?" People are like very surprised.
Should be like, yeah, keep underestimating.
Yeah.
I imagine though that wasn't easy. I mean, I know you're kind of past most of it now, right? Being out of high school and now and college. But when you're going through it, as you said, when you're getting a C, you're getting whatever grades you're getting, it does feel like the end of the world. And it's very hard for young kids to look beyond the right now. And it feels like parents are going to kill me. And there is sometimes that parental pressure, and that's sometimes healthy, but it plays a role. So did you have to just kind of suck it up and suffer through it? Or did you have a strategy like that you used?
No, yeah, I agree what you're saying. Yeah, definitely getting a C or a bad grade or an F or whatever when you're that age feels horrible, and you think it's the end of the world, and you think your parents are going to kill you. And yes, obviously my parents always wanted me to do really well, as most people's parents do. And so as a kid, you're scared. You think your parents are going to be so mad at you. But every time I would go home to my parents, they would always be fine. I kind of started doing this myself as I got older. It's not necessarily about the grade. More so is it, do you really want to understand the material? My mom and my dad would both be like, well, do you understand the material? And they would. And this kind of perpetuated into me later on is now one of my biggest study strategies is I talk back and try to teach somebody the material. If I can teach my friend the material, that means I really understand it. Honestly, I think even the whole ABC system for students less under high school. In med school, we actually have the pass-fail system. The whole country switched to that.
Okay.
And I think it's a great system for students that are that age. It's a lot of pressure for 10-year-olds to be put on to try to get an A versus a B versus a C. I feel like in 5th grade, it doesn't really matter if you got an A or a B, right? It's kind of, you're going to go to high school. It's really about understanding the material. And so as I started getting older, I started realizing that's more what it's about. As high school student, I worked as a tutor at Mathnasium, and I always tutored in math. And that really also kind of helped show me, oh, I really do understand all this stuff because I can teach kids doing it. And I really liked that. I did that in college too. I tutored in like calculus and chemistry. We just talked about my chemistry story in high school. So in high school, I was okay at chemistry, but I was better at biology. So I always thought, oh, chemistry's not my thing. I'm not good at chemistry. I really have to put in all these hours trying to understand it. And I still would get like a B. And for me, I thought that was bad, but that's fine. You'll be okay if you're getting a B, you're fine. You'll be okay if you're getting a C. And I always thought, oh, chemistry's not my thing. Then I went to college. So then I took chemistry, and I remember so vividly, I was sitting in my chemistry lecture my freshman year, and all of a sudden I just was like, oh, everything from high school, all the things my professor was saying, it all clicked. But it took me all these hours of trying to really understand the material in high school, then trying to understand it in college, and then keep listening to it. And then all of a sudden it clicked. And then I was really good at chemistry, so much so that they asked me to tutor in it. And then they asked me to be they don't call it a TA when you're an undergrad student. They call it a workshop leader. It's like a TA, but you're not a grad student yet. They asked me to do that. So then I ended up being really good at chemistry and got a chemistry minor. Originally, I thought I was bad at chemistry, but sometimes it just takes time, and you have to not stress about the grade in that moment. And it's more important to think about, really, do I understand the material? Because the grade will come.
I can't echo that enough and second that enough, because I think that there's a finality to a grade that is just not true of the human brain. Just sometimes think, sometimes when you're 10 or 11, you're just not ready to learn about the difference between a semicolon and a colon. And is that the end of the world? No, it's absolutely not. Does that mean you can't communicate? No. So I 100% agree that things just click at different times.
It happened to me with algebra also. I was an E math in middle school. And again, I thought it was the end of the world because I got a C. So I dropped out of E math and retook algebra again in 8th grade. So I took it 7th grade and 8th grade. I thought this was the end of the world. I thought I was dumb, but I wasn't ever going to be anything. But then I took it in 8th grade, and I was like, oh, I get it. It all clicked. I got it. And then when I took algebra 2 in high school, it was so easy because I got it. I was like, oh, I understood all the foundations, and it made me really understand it again because I understood all the concepts. But at the time, I thought it was the end of the world.
So there's a level of honesty that it seems that you have with yourself that I think is key, because the fact that you were honest and I don't really understand it. So what do I need to do to make sure I understand it? You also mentioned how a lot of your friends maybe were not in the same classes as you because you were maybe in the more advanced classes and they were not. I could also see that easily becoming a source of tension.
Yeah, well, it would be lighthearted humor, like, oh, you're such a nerd, or oh, this. I never took it to heart because in
Okay, good.
reality, I was like, well, I'm the one who's
Yeah.
doing really well in school right now. And they all knew. They were very nice. But for
Okay.
example, my fiance I met when I was 12 years old, and we started dating our senior year of high school, and we've been together ever since. But he is the opposite of me. He is not a school person. School was never for him. And I think that's also kind of an important point for teachers, even, is that he was someone whose school was never for him. He just didn't like it. And that's okay too. If you don't like school, you don't want to be miserable. If math is never going to be for you, you don't need to force yourself and be pressured and stressed all the time to try to get a C in math. If that's just not for you, it's okay. That's normal and that's fine. I think normalizing that is also important because he was on the opposite spectrum. So teachers told him he was dumb, wasn't ever going to be successsul. Like he had an English teacher tell him, yeah, like you'll never get a job, you'll never go to college, all these things, X, Y, Z. And now he has a job and he does very well. And so I think that it's important to normalize that too, that you don't need to go to college or you don't need to be this perfect straight A student to do well in life. You'll find your way. If you do what you're passionate about and you do something you really enjoy, you'll do just fine.
Some stress and some pressure is healthy. Like you need a little bit of a push and a nudge. So how do you, because especially as a teacher, because I agree with you, sometimes we're in the position where we have to apply a little bit of pressure and a little bit of stress because maybe it's not coming from other places to provide some guidance or whatever it may be. So how do you differentiate, do you think, between like healthy stress versus this is just not what you need to be spending your energy and health worrying about?
I think I saw you talk about this in one of your other videos that I watched, that you spend a lot of time with your kids, probably more time than their parents do. So I think teachers really get to know their students. And I think you can kind of tell if someone needs a push and they are capable and they just need a little push, or if someone needs to be told it's okay. Like, just try your best. It's okay. Like, as long as you're just trying to understand what's going on, you don't need to push yourself. I think you can understand based on the student. I'm sure you can tell based on each student kind of what they are capable of and what they want to do. Some students love school and might not be an A student, but they love school and they really like to come to school and do all their work. Or some students hate school and that's the last place they want to be and they don't like that rigid structure and that's just not for them.
It's kind of turning gears towards the friendship aspect. What experiences did you have growing up, 5th grade, 6th grade, that you think either like molded you in a positive way or impacted you maybe negatively?
The whole doing great or doing bad in school can be kind of like embarrassing. I think like when I wasn't doing well in my E classes or whatever, and I thought it was the end of the world, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so embarrassing. If I drop out and I have to go into a different class in the middle of the year, that's the most embarrassing thing ever. That's what you're thinking about when you're 10, 11, 12 years old. You think just everything is embarrassing and you don't want other people to know. So you're going to come up with some other reason maybe and say, oh no, it was the teacher, or oh, I had to drop out for whatever the reason might be. That doesn't really matter. No one's going to remember what you did in 5th grade or 6th grade when you're an adult. Nobody.
Yeah, it's shocking how little people really think about you except you.
Yeah, exactly.
You really owned that lesson for yourself as you go into medical school, which is also highly competitive. Are you taking that lesson with you?
Definitely. I am definitely a very chill, laid back person. I have that blessing that it takes a lot for me to feel pressure. Granted, med school is a lot of pressure. For example, med school, every block or class, you take classes in blocks. You take one class at a time for like 8 weeks, and then you have a test. And it's one test. You either pass the test or you fail the test. And that's if you passed or if you failed the whole class. So I know a lot of people stress out in high school or college if their final is worth like 30% of their grade. But in med school, that's your whole grade. It's 100%. So the pressure, I've definitely just gotten used to it. You just kind of get used to yourself. You really get to know yourself and know how you study and know what's effective, what's not effective. So it definitely is a good period of learning yourself and learning what works best for you.
Do you feel like college prepared you for med school?
Yeah. I mean, I went to the University of Miami and I love that school. I will always recommend it. Great school. I actually as much as I'm talking about things that I think we should have learned in Bridgewater as 5th, 6th, 7th through high school, I felt very prepared when I went to college, especially compared to a lot of my other peers. I had a lot of peers in Miami that came in with much higher GPAs in high school, much higher SATs, all these fancy schools, fancy private schools. And I felt, from other states, of course, not New Jersey, because we do have very good school systems here. Yeah. And I felt more prepared than a lot of them. I felt like I knew my study schedule. I knew how to study. I knew how to organize myself, which I recommend that class in high school. They have that, note-taking and study skills. I felt like since our high school, even though it's a pain, it helped me for college walking around. So I felt very prepared when I went to college. I'll give it that. And then after college at school, Miami is a very they have a lot of pre-med resources and pre-medical school clubs and tools and things like that I was really involved in. And so I had a lot of older mentors that really gave me a lot of great advice and still do to this day. And so they do a really good job with getting you mentors and making sure you have people that can help you. So I then felt I knew exactly what to expect when I came into med school. Nothing really prepares you for it, for how hard and how time consuming it's going to be. Yeah. But I did feel as prepared as I think I could have possibly been.
And then my last question is, becoming a doctor was very prestigious, and it comes with a lot of positive stereotypes, being smart and being very dedicated, caring about humanity. Do you feel like there's something you can speak to for other kids about other professions or other areas? Sometimes people get stuck in the mindset of you have to be a doctor or a lawyer or an engineer, and these are the only ways to be smart. And for, or just kids in general, I think it's so important to change that narrative that intelligence looks very different in different places. So can you speak to that a little bit?
I think there's so many different places. For example, my dad is a salesperson and he does very well. And he's very, very smart, very good at math and computing, all those things in his head, and business at the same time. Being able to sell someone a product is an intelligence that I do not have. My father has it. My fiance has it. He's a mortgage loan officer. So he works for a bank and he sells people their mortgages for their houses. Okay. And any type of skill like that, where you're selling people and working out deals in any type of business, I highly applaud, because I cannot do that type of stuff. My mind does not work in the business world at all. I might be becoming to be a doctor, but I definitely don't know everything. You have to be very intelligent to be your own boss, because in sales, it's commissions. So how hard you work and how much you sell makes how much money you make. And I applaud people who do that, because they are so driven. They're so talented. They're so smart. They know how to work with people and get all that stuff done.
And that's not to take away from you at all, because of course you are all of those things as well. I just thought, being that you're in that world, that you would have some perspective on that.
Yeah, I definitely don't think becoming a doctor or a lawyer or engineer is the only way to go at all. If anything, for some people, it's better to not go that route. Don't get yourself in the hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt. If it's not something you really, really love and something you really want to do, probably not worth it.
And is there anything else that you wanted to just share or say?
One other topic I did want to talk about, actually, from a health perspective, is something that I think that was missed also in the education system, is any type of thing on nutrition. Even in medical school, they told us our first day in medical school, you only get, I think, like 10 hours total in all of our many, many hours of school on nutrition. We don't even get that much education on it. In school, I remember barely touching on it. You get 1/4 of the year for health, and then within that quarter, you barely talk about it. So I think nutrition is something that's very misunderstood. But as someone who wants to go into orthopedics and sports medicine, I value nutrition a lot, and I've done a lot of my own research. And so I've learned a lot myself. And I think a lot of people really don't understand the concept of what's healthy, what's not healthy. People think just because they're eating a salad, that means it's healthy. That's not necessarily true. I don't want to give any dietary recommendations to anybody, because I'm not a nutritionist, disclaimer. But I do. It's really important for people to understand carbs, fats, proteins, what's important. Because especially myself growing up, I was in 5th and 6th grade in 2010. So early 2000s to 2010. Is kind of growing up watching all the teen movies, and even through now, it's all about, like, especially for girls, super skinny, the skinniest as possible. You should only eat a bar, you should only eat some almonds or a salad, and that's all you should be eating, when that's really not good advice at all. That's not what's important. And I think people my age and a little bit older all have that perpetual mindset of constantly, we need to lose 10 pounds, need to lose 10 pounds.
Yeah.
And that I think will just always be stuck in my mind constantly. And I've just kind of like accepted that. And I know that's just a thought that's always going to be there. But I think for young girls, especially, it's important to kind of emphasize body image. I think that's an important thing to learn about, and that everybody's different. And just because you see Kim Kardashian on TV, she had a lot of surgery probably and has a lot of expensive doctors and work done on her. That's not accurate. And if you see a celebrity post their diet on social media, that's also not what they actually eat. Don't follow that. And every person is different. And again, if you see what someone else is eating, just if you eat that same thing, you're not going to look like them. That's not what's going to happen, because every single person's different and your body needs something different than somebody else's body, because everyone is different.
I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because that's honestly something I've learned only within the last couple of years. And that's only because I started with a trainer. And other than that, there was a lot of just misinformation on social media. People that are claiming to really, know what they're talking about. But then, I would match that to what my trainer would share with me. And it just was totally contradictory. And also what I didn't find to be true for myself. Like I didn't feel healthier or feel better. You just kind of are checking off this list that someone else has created for you, but you have to look at what really works for you. As you said, you can literally do step by step what someone else is doing, and your genetics are just different.
Yeah, especially for girls in 6th grade. I know I was there when your body is changing and you're starting to look different. Some girls look a lot younger, some girls look a lot older. I was one of the girls who developed earlier, so I looked a lot older, and you feel weird and different and you're confused and you're like, why do I weigh 20 pounds more than my friend? This, that, the other. It's normal. It's okay. You'll be fine. I think that's like the worst like body image years I can imagine. All you can think about is how you look, because you want the boy to think you're cute and whatever, but it's okay. I am engaged to the boy I met then, so it all worked out.
Now, you said that you feel like that voice will kind of always be in your head as far as I need to lose the 10 pounds, because that probably came from somewhere when you were very young. How do you think you can change that?
Yeah, I think that's something, I think it is something that I should work on probably, because you're like, oh, I should lose 10 pounds for summer. Oh, I need to lose 10 pounds because it's just been the holidays and work it off. Now I'm like, oh, I have a wedding. Maybe I should do that. But it's like, it's okay that if you feel healthy and you feel good and you're working out, so you are being healthy, as long as you're getting 30 minutes a day, 5 times a week, get your steps in, everybody. It's healthy for your heart. As long as you're working on your heart and your respiratory system and you're feeling good with what you're eating. If you feel gross and you don't feel good, then maybe switch something up. But you'd be surprised of how much food you can eat. You can eat a lot more food. Don't starve yourself, people. It's not good. Probably something I should remember. It's okay. I feel fine. I feel great. I went on a run this morning. I can move my body. I should be appreciative of that and not compare myself to other people. But it is something that's always hard. And I think even adults still struggle with that, thinking about comparing themselves to other people.
All the time. It's very normal, very natural, but it's a matter of kind of monitoring the voice in your mind. And as you just did, like, you know what, I'm fine. I'm feeling okay. I'm feeling healthy. I'm able to do the things I need to do. And if I do feel gross, or I feel like I overate, or I had too many fries at dinner, okay, well then you balance that out the next day. And I think balance is key in general.
I agree.
But thank you so much for your time, Mallory. I really appreciate it. I'm so glad I got to see you. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
I would love to get an update when you're done with med school, and I'm always here if you ever need anything. And I'm sure. All right. Thank you.
No problem. Have a good day.
You too. Bye.